And could you believe we are already in Thursday? Thursday, I mean, it's a blow mind. Today is the 20th of November. We're just 1 month away, bar 5 days from Christmas Day. I cannot believe how 2014 has just about flown out the window. But we're enjoying the best time of the year for me, and I hope it's the best time of the year for you, because I certainly enjoy Christmas. Now today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about mediation, you know. And before we start with the whole topic and who my guest is today on Breakfast with the Deacons, I want to share with you Papa Francis, because I don't know why Papa Francis sent me this quote today. But to me, he normally flows into whatever, or we normally flow into whatever he is saying. So here's Papa Francis's quote for the day. Every man, every woman who has to take up the service of government must ask themselves 2 questions. Do I love my people in order that I may serve them better? Am I humble? And do I listen to everybody, to diverse opinions, in order to choose the best path? If you do not ask those questions, your governance will not be good. Now, I find that is a wonderful way to roll out this beautiful topic of mediation. And with me this morning on Breakfast with the Deacons for the very first time, and I'm a little jealous this morning, because he is wearing my shirt, you understand? We have the Honorable Justice Vashist Kukaram. Welcome to Breakfast with the Deacons.
It's a pleasure to share breakfast with you.
Oh God, you all realize the man is wearing my tie and my shirt and my jacket too? I mean, listen, great minds think alike.
Well, yes.
Welcome to the Breakfast with the Deacons.
It's a pleasure.
Mediation. I was just Googling and checking out, and you are on the board of the Justice, the Justice Commission?
No, I'm the chairman of the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago.
Chairman of the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago, correct.
And that mediation board, it regulates the mediation profession. So what we do, we certify mediators, we certify mediation agencies, we certify training programs, and we certify mediation trainers.
Right.
But we see our role more than just certifying people, because you certify mediators and then the public doesn't know what mediation is about. So our role really is to try to educate the public on what is mediation, how can mediation be an important aspect of your life. And as you know, Derek, the whole aspect of peace and harmony and compassion, those are real virtues for our coexistence. And mediation really has a lot to do with that. And it's also based on a lot of Christian philosophies and religious philosophies as well.
Now, this mediation board, it has anything to do with the Dispute Resolution Center?
Now, the Dispute Resolution Center is a mediation agency.
Okay.
And so, therefore, they fall under our umbrella of regulating them.
Okay.
So, we've certified them as an agency.
Right.
And they've been doing a lot of work in mediation since 1995 in doing trainings and mediations. They actually did the quarter next mediation when the Chief Justice had a mediation pilot project last year and I think 2 years before. So they've been doing a lot of good work, and we have other mediation agencies as well. Mediate It Limited. That's an attorney who you think an attorney is a fighter and a warrior, but the attorneys are now changing their practice into becoming mediators. So here's an attorney, Ms. Gillian Ciceran, who has established a mediation agency, and so offering services of mediation together with legal services. And then you have Ms. Fariza Sharma Ciceran, another lawyer who's developed another mediation agency, Disputes Resolution of Trinidad and Tobago. There is another one, the name escapes me, Direct Resolve is another mediation agency. So those are the private mediation agencies. Then there are public mediation agencies. The judiciary is a mediation agency.
The judiciary is a mediation. I would have never thought the judiciary would have been.
And that's significant. And that is why the Chief Justice is so passionate about making sure that mediation becomes part of the process. Because under the Mediation Act of 2004, the judiciary is a mediation agency. The Industrial Court is a mediation agency.
Right, okay.
The Tax Appeal Board, Environmental Commission.
The Tax Appeal Board is a mediation agency.
Yes.
You mean to say if you're struggling, you could go down there and get some mediation?
Well, it's a mediation agency. So they have an obligation.
Right.
Each of these agencies have an obligation to set up the rules to allow for parties to negotiate a panchayat, to talk and resolve problems.
But you said a word there, panchayat.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that is important, you know, because
it's part of our culture.
It's part of our culture.
Yeah.
You know, we as a people, we have the elder societies from Africa. We have the panchayat from India. The Asians have their own system of resolving disputes. In fact, conflict in the Asian society is like dishonor.
Yes.
So the question of harmony. And so because we are like that, I think mediation is so much part of our daily life and how we used to grow up and how we lived with our neighbors and the hospitality, and we have Calypsonians singing all our we is one family.
Right.
So why are we fighting? So that is the whole nexus. I think in our genetic code as Trinidadians and Tobagonians and perhaps even the Caribbean, we have this potential to be peace-loving people.
You know, and I don't want to sound like how I'm going to sound right now, but I think Trinidad especially has that gift to be mediators or to mediate conflict. Because, you know, take for instance, there are so many things I always share with people that is so against their own cultures. So I remember one day I was just on the side of the road, and here you had a UNC truck coming down the road and a PNM truck going up the road, and here you have two opposing parties fighting for elections to see who would win. You know, and as they pass by, some of the guys on one side said, "Hey boy, we run out of ice. You have any ice?" And guys from the other side passed ice to them, and so on. You know, you find very seldom that you would have any sort of violence, election type violence in Trinidad, which is so strange for other countries. You know, some other countries say, but you do have that.
No, that's right. It's historic too, in terms of how we grew up. In terms of, you know, if we draw the connection from our forefathers and the plantation, we had to find a formula of how to live together, and we found it. And you're right, that music truck is a perfect example of look, we could take opposing positions, but at the end of the day, we recognize that we won Trinidad and Tobago. And I think you make a good point when you say that Trinidadians and Tobagonians may have that gift. It would be surprising to know Carl Hudson Phillips, who's passed on. He sat on a tribunal, with international tribunal of 3 international judges, and he was one. And they had to deal with the atrocities of a conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. There was a flotilla of ships that were bombed, and the Palestinians and so on were killed and so on.
Yes, I remember that.
And there was a passage in his judgment which says that we must try to dig ourselves out of the misgivings of the past and focus on the future. And the tone of his judgment was like, we must live together as humans, and we must abandon these hard positions. And I think perhaps only a Trinidadian could have said it, because if he understood it. You are UNC, you are a politician, you are PNM, but you can hold those things. But essentially, I mean, we're all working for the same purpose, and we're all one family.
Good. And that's so important, because I share, and people looking on, you know, many times at a service or at a mass, if I'm given the opportunity to do the homily, I share with people, I said, we come to one table. One table to eat. You know, to be able to experience the body of Christ. We say one prayer that Jesus himself taught us, the Our Father, which means that regardless, we're all brothers and sisters. So therefore, if we are one family, then why can't we sit down and talk?
And you know, one of the most powerful messages that you can give to your perceived enemy is to sit down on the table and share bread. And that act alone is an act of community. And in fact, most of the mediation sessions done by some of the agencies, they have their little food and so on.
Really?
They have the little eats, the little snacks and so on. And people are tempted just to pick at it. But that's breaking the ice and getting us together. I think in the Bible as well, you would have the famous saying of Jesus. He said, well, don't take your disputes to non-believers, settle it amongst yourselves. And that idea is about self-empowerment. Don't try to have a third person tell you what to do. You have the capability to work out what is best for both of you. And agree to it. And when you agree to it, it becomes a more long-lasting solution. And I think that's the beauty of mediation, where you get parties to first try to understand the dispute, try to take away the emotions from it, try to understand the interests, focus on some options, and then work out a practical solution. And in the pilot project, we realized most of the practical solutions could not have been achieved within the legal system. So, apologies.
Most of the practical solutions could not have been achieved
in the legal
system.
Yeah. Okay. So
why is this?
Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
A fireman and a police officer. Because of the confidentiality of the mediation, they're both neighbors. And one day the police officer realizes the fireman is burning rubbish right next to his fence.
The fire.
Right? So and all the smoke is coming across, dirtying his clothes. He has asthma. His children has asthma, and they're suffering. And he complained about it, and he continued burning more. And so the officer started pelting down and hurl abuses and so. And eventually they took him to court. Now what can you get in court? He's suing him for damages for nuisance, damages for the smoke that is affecting him. So the court will now have to work out, well, how much money we'll have to pay you, Mr. Policeman. Because we are talking about, and probably to stop him from burning. Those are two remedies. It went to mediation. What happened there? The police officer and the fireman started the chat, and the mediator said, so why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And trying to understand what's happening. And he said, look, you see what happened? The fireman tells the police officer, I invited you to my my wife's birthday party last year. And you turn around and tell me my wife can't cook nothing. That she's the worst cook in the village. I take offense with that. And so he retaliated. Right. And that was when the relationship with the neighbors broke down. So he was trying to egg him on and so on. So it had nothing to do with burning rubbish. It had to do with you insulted my wife. And then the police officer didn't really told us it was a joke, and he apologized. And once the apology came, that was the end of it. And you can't get apology within the framework of that legal system. I mean, it's unheard of. You don't order apologies unless it is a libel matter. And so they worked out that, if he's burning rubbish, he could do it on the other side and certain times and so on.
But that comes down to the typical kind of Trinidad boss of fatigue on your part.
Well, this is it. Well, I mean,
your wife is the worst cook in the village, but he said he didn't mean it that way.
No, he didn't mean it that way. Exactly. So it's just typical of almost all types of disputes where there's misunderstanding, probably miscommunication, where parties start in a conflict and they get so polarized looking at the positions and they stop talking to one another, and the absence of communication causes them to become even more polarized. And when you come to a court system, it's an adversarial system. And so it forces parties again to become even more polarized because lawyers are encouraged, are trained to beat the other side. And so we are going to fight. So that is the mindset of the adversary. So it has nothing to do about peace. It has everything to do about settling disputes civilly, but it's fighting. And that is why you have a lot of, we've even heard of witnesses even dying under cross-examination because of how intense. I mean,
witnesses dying.
That is perhaps an extreme example, but it tells you the stress. A lot of people get a lot of stress.
That brings about a lot of stress. I understand that.
The judiciary is changing, and we recognize that we need to adopt a humanistic approach to dealing with disputes. So if you come to the court now, we need to deal with people humanely. And so the adversarial system is the last resort. But before we get there, let's mediate.
So let me go back to this. So judges, lawyers, and so on, is that part of their training now? That they will, that this is, the mediation is going to be part of the whole thing of resolving conflicts?
Yeah. So it is now part of the culture of the legal system.
All right, okay.
Lawyers are being trained.
Yeah.
We have seen an increase in the number of lawyers who are becoming certified as mediators.
Right, okay.
The Chief Justice is a certified mediator.
Right,
okay. A number of judges have been trained in mediation, and it has affected our approach in dealing with cases.
Okay.
We now have transformed ourselves from adjudicators to facilitators and to working out solutions rather than making a decision.
Okay.
If you understand the difference between that. And for lawyers, they're transforming themselves really from the adversary to problem solvers.
Okay. Okay.
So what you would see in the future is when you go into a lawyer's office, of course, the client is upset and he wants to fight and his emotion, and the lawyer will now try to sift through everything, and he'll have two angles.
Yes.
Okay, how can we work this out peacefully?
Right.
And of course, how can we work this out within the adversarial system as well?
Right.
Because you have to protect your rights.
Yes.
And we hope that will now give clients the option of dealing with disputes, as I say, humanely. And it transforms that person, the client himself, and he takes a second look at himself.
Yes.
And he says, "Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I didn't realize that we could have arrived at that solution if we had sat down and talked and so on."
No, well, let's go back to the fireman and the policeman.
Yeah.
You know, we don't realize that. You know, take for instance the fireman who was lighting the rubbish by the fence of the policeman. Since the policeman told him that his wife couldn't cook, that must have been bugging at him, eating away at him for the length of time, whether it was 1 month, 2 months, or maybe a whole year. You know, that would have been eating away at his own soul. Every time he saw that policeman, he must have, must have hated him. And therefore that, mediation and coming to say, look, let's sit down and talk and listen. There must be another way of working it out. That transforms you also.
Well, I'm glad you used the word, because there's a style of mediation called transformative mediation.
Right.
So there's probably 3 main styles. Facilitative mediation, where the certified mediator will facilitate the communication. Allow one person to speak at a time, kind of paraphrase or reframe what he's saying, so that the other side isn't, isn't hurt by some of the jabs.
Right.
So that's his technique, and to try to help parties, get to options. The other style is evaluative mediation, where the mediator can actually offer an opinion on perhaps, well, I think this is a good option. I think this is a good option. I'll come back to that in a second. And the third one is transformative, where the whole approach is really to have that person go through a journey of looking at himself, looking at his opponent, and fixing that relationship, and then, well, having positive growth coming out of a conflict.
So you've found, in terms of looking at this is becoming more and more a solution that people would like to avail themselves of, rather than go through this whole legalistic adversarial type system. I mean, especially, but this would be what, in civil type matters?
Right now it's civil, and we can have a chat about criminal as well.
You can also get this in criminal matters.
It'll surprise you to know that there is a field of practice called victim-offender mediation, where the victim and the offender comes together in the same mediation with the certified mediator.
Wow.
And the purpose of that, and this is a tenet of restorative justice, is to restore the relationship, but restore the hurt of the victim. To have a reformative process in the accused. You'll be surprised that they've used victim-offender mediations in simple matters, of course, simple assaults, but even rapes and in murders.
You are breaking me down here in rapes and murders. So because when you have those kinds of criminal situations, there's so much hurt because of what transpired, because of the pain. That that when the two meet, you know, most of the times, oh, we caught you, you know, we want justice, you know, but you talk about restorative justice, you know.
And I'll be surprised.
You have to have this side.
Yeah, I'll be surprised to know what the victim may want most, and I don't know whether studies have been done on this. Let's take the murderer, for example.
Right.
Do they want to see that person die? Or do they want to hear from that person the apology, the regret, the willingness to make, to do something, you know? And think about it. For example, the classic case might well be motor manslaughter. Think about it that way. I mean, an accident happens, someone dies, and the man is being, he's in the criminal court, and motor manslaughter is a serious charge. So he's looking at a jail term. Does he deserve that? What were the circumstances? You know, and that's the conversation. And then the regret, and and then you would never get that conversation in the legal, in the prosecution, in the prosecution system. So that's the benefit people are seeing of the victim offender. But in the rape situation, it's a question of that.
Wow,
hurt,
that is a tough one. That is a tough one.
Of the hurt of the victim. And that person needs to hear, you know, why was this done, and was it an isolated thing? Is there somebody else who's tracking me now? And it empowers the victim in a way in which you would not do in the prosecution system. Because remember, the victim goes through a lot of stress in the prosecution as well. Remember, that person has to be cross-examined, and many times the victim feels as though they did something wrong. So this is a private session, and I must emphasize that mediation is a confidential and private session. And the reason it's private is so that they can be free to see whatever they wish to see, and the mediator has the control of the environment to make sure it's safe for them.
But you're right. So therefore, these people, mediators, have to be trained. What is the length of that process?
Right. Under the Mediation Act, you have a basic standard to become a mediator. 40 hours mediation training on a certified mediation training program, and then having conducted 4 mediations and observed 4 mediations, being observed by a certified mediator. Then you're interviewed by the board, and then we put you through a role play, and then we certify you if we think you're suitable.
We were talking earlier, and you were saying that you were thinking about having Trinidad and Tobago, and specifically Tobago, as maybe being a place where you can regionally, locally, and internationally be kind of like that place where people would come and learn about mediation and so on.
And actually, you hit upon it earlier when you talked about who we are. And let me just backtrack a bit. I mean, when we talk about globalization, we're talking about the world as one community. And we're looking for solutions for mankind. And we're looking at comparative advantages. And I think we have the comparative advantage in hospitality.
Wow, yes, we do.
And when you go to Tobago, of all places, it is like down tools. I didn't want to work here. I just relax. I want to talk. I want to, be at peace. Something about that of the island. All right. And it's not the same feeling in Trinidad, and that's why we all flock there.
That's right.
To relax.
That's right.
So if that's the feeling, let's develop that into something tangible, something productive.
And you're looking at this being also regional.
So so you have it can be you're hosting training programs, hosting seminars, but more importantly, we develop a cadre of professionals who are available at the center there to be developed. And the Tobago House of Assembly has jumped on this idea.
Really?
And they have partnered
so
with
they're
us.
on board?
They're on board to develop this. If there's a dispute, a national dispute, let's take the highway reroute movement, for example.
Listen, hold on. I need to get you back on this show because I'm seeing my producer telling me I only have about 30 more seconds. But this highway reroute thing, I really wanted us to talk about it because, there you have so many people asking for mediation, in this process, in this situation, so that we don't go down the roads. And we see seem to have people on either side, you know, polarized. Yeah. And people are saying, let's talk. Yeah. And we want you all to talk. We got 14 seconds. Justice, it's been wonderful
Pleasure.
to have you.
Pleasure.
Please, I need to get you on board again.
Sure.
Let's talk because I heard you have other things coming up.
We have a mediation symposium next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.